What's up, Ryan here, and today we're going to talk about, is it safe to use ChatGPT at work? And I'll be honest, that is a huge question that is in the back or the front of the minds of pretty much everybody these days. Now, small business owners and startups, they may just full send this stuff because their risk profile is much different, right? And as an entrepreneur, clearly my risk profile is completely different. But if you're an employee or if you manage employees, then, and especially if you're a little bit bigger company, this one question is bouncing around in the minds of everybody. And I can tell you, not resolving it is hampering your ability to actually take advantage of some of the huge, powerful benefits of generative AI. I've actually got a client. I've been working with them for 4 months now. They have an entire AI committee, and their HR team is struggling to implement some of the solutions we built because of this exact question. Is it safe to use? And the problem with this concept is that we don't really have a measurement for it. We don't have a framework for it. What we have is a whole lot of hype and hate and fear and all kinds of stuff out there in the world. So I'm going to try to unpack this in a way that from top to bottom, we can all get on the same page. And so this is the core question. Can I use ChatGPT at work? I need it to be safe. And safe to me is these 4 main things. Is it secure? Meaning the information I'm putting in, is it going to be shared with or added to the language model? Number 2, is it accurate? Is the information I'm getting back going to be not just accurate, meaning right or wrong, but accurate, meaning sound like our brand, talk like our brand, kind of fit within the way that we talk about things and our brand voice and our brand concepts, as well as being actually accurate? Friendly, meaning is it approachable? Can I actually use it without becoming a prompt engineer? And if I can, when I hand it to the next person in the team, can the entire team use it in a consistently effective way? Or do we end up with everybody at different levels? And then finally, is it actually effective? Not just efficient, not just more profitable, but does it maintain or even improve the customer experience and the employee experience? Today, we're going to talk about secure. And this is one of those areas that I just don't think enough education's been done around how generative AI works. So let's kind of break it down for a second. At its core, generative AI is a large language model. What that means is that they took a whole bunch of information and they trained an AI tool set to be able to predict or create what comes next. What that means is that when I send a prompt towards it, I make a request, it takes my content, it uses it against this language model, and it comes back with a response, right? Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. This green thing here, though, is kind of a black box. It's super magical, and it really can't explain how it's getting to the answer that it's getting to. More importantly, it isn't always consistent, meaning that if I put a prompt and you put a prompt, it may not come back with the same exact thing. And this is where a lot of that question about safety comes in. When I take this request information, whatever that is, and send it over there, does it simply use that, process it, and send it back, or does it store it and add it to its model? When ChatGPT came out, I'll kind of explain this a little bit. When ChatGPT came out for free, 100 million plus people signed up for it. I think it's even higher than that right now. And they're not all active users because a lot of them are not getting back great results. That goes back to the accuracy thing. But one of the things about ChatGPT free was that, why, yes, all the information you were putting into it and your back and forth conversations with it were being added to its language model. It was being used to train it, to make it better in the future. Now, clearly that happens with almost all technology. When you log into Netflix and you pick a show, it knows that as a 48-year-old white guy who likes watching Psych, that if there's somebody else like me, it can use the knowledge about the different shows that I like watching to be able to predict and therefore assist that person to have a better experience. We're more and more used to this concept that the technology around us, the websites we use, whether it's Alexa or Siri or Netflix or Facebook, that it's actually looking at what we do and learning from it, both to improve our experience in the future, to make it faster at giving us back what we want, as well as to mimic us, our experience for other people to be able to predict what they might want. Seems, for the most part, pretty not a big deal, although a lot of people freak out by it. But where it's different here is that we're actually putting knowledge and information into it, and especially at the corporate level, that knowledge and information might be secret, it might be private, it might be something that is proprietary, it might be something that we want to protect. And so by default, ChatGPT Free does not protect that. Now, that doesn't mean that loading up some of your information is going to instantly share it with your competitors. But what it does mean is that loading up your knowledge is going to start to impact the way it reacts and responds to other people like you who ask it a similar question. Now, ChatGPT came out with ChatGPT Plus, and a lot of focus is about what models are available. But that's not actually the reason to upgrade to ChatGPT Plus. It has other features, the ability to upload files, the ability to use audio to engage with it, the ability to create GBTs, to be able to replicate the prompts that you're running. But it still is training the model. There is one way with a ChatGPT Plus account for you to actually take and make it so it doesn't train the model, but that requires that you turn off your history. What that means is you're going to lose all your past conversations with it after 30 days, which is not what you want. Now, what this means is ChatGPT Free, ChatGPT Plus, they're great for personal use. They're probably great for small business use. If you do marketing and stuff where you end up loading up stuff that just ends up out there in the public sector or the public society at large anyway, it may not be a big deal. But if you are running a corporate environment, I would suggest that you don't want your team using either of those. You have two other options over here on the right, though, that you would want to use. Number one is ChatGPT Workspace. I'm going to show you what that looks like here. I can just jump right over to it. If you're in your own personal account, down here on the left, you'll see this Add a Team Workspace. And what you want to add a business one. And right here by default, you're going to see that team data is excluded from training by default, right? And it's going to remind you all the time about it. This changes the price by $5 to $10 a month, I believe is where it's at. And it makes it so that up here, I have my own little set of workspaces where I have more control. But again, the most important part of it is that Refer.io workspace chats aren't used to train our models, right? And so that's the number one reason to upgrade into that tool there, is that exact piece. Now, the other option is to use an API to not use ChatGPT at all, but use some other interface that's going to interact via API with a large language model. That would include pretty much any software platform right now that is integrating with OpenAI. That means if you're in Salesforce and you use their AI tool, or you're in Paylocity, if they have an AI tool, I believe iCIMS has one, I believe Applicant Pro has one, like everybody and their dog is building in these little prompts inside of their systems. And so that by default, using from in there will check off the S in safe. It will make it more secure. It ensures that that's not going into it. Now, there's other problems with just doing it that way, but if we think about from a cost standpoint, there's also a difference in the cost piece, right? $20 per user. This is $35 per user per space. That $25 was if you pay annually. Here's one thing to keep in mind. If I come back over here to my spaces, and you can see I'm a member in 5 different spaces, I'm paying $30 or $25 if I paid annual per month per space. So that's one thing. If you start building out different workspaces for your teams and you have an administrator or somebody who goes into those different spaces, it can start adding up. I mean, do the math here. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 spaces in here. That's like $280 a month. So that cost goes up pretty rapidly if you are in different spaces for different teams or different companies. Now, API usage is per use, not per login, not per conversation, but based off of this back and forth. It's kind of like paying for text by word. It's probably the best way to think about it. It's very complicated. They really haven't done a great job of making this an easily understood piece. But just imagine that every time you send a prompt over, you might spend a penny, right? And so the upside of this, of using the API piece, isn't just that it's secure, it's that as you use it more, it's going to become less expensive than paying per user. So let me just show you from what we do. We build our own little AI tools, and we're therefore running via the API. That means going back to those two things. We pay the wholesale cost of per use, so I can create users for, say, 1,000 college students and not pay for each of their users, but just spend the money on the back and forth use. And number two, it goes through the API, so it's secure. We're not feeding that information in. The other thing it lets us do is it lets us actually train our own LLM models. That means we can use the processing power and the strength of OpenAI, but we can actually feed it our own language model to dial it in even better. Hopefully this makes sense and really kind of unpacks how to think this through, because surprisingly enough, almost nobody in corporate America understands this concept. And so there's just a lot of confusion out there. So if you have any questions, I'm here to help. Feel free to shoot me an email with any of your questions. Otherwise, we'll talk to you again later.